Morning, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt back inside the Beltway. Angela Merkel of Germany was at the White House last night. I have got a column over at the WashingtonPost.com landing page on Cuba, which I want you to read and send around. And I caught up with Texas Governor Greg Abbott yesterday. Here's that conversation. Joined now by the Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor Abbott, welcome. It's good to talk to you.
Great to visit with you again, Hugh. Things going well for you?
It is. I thought you might be mad at me because I talked to Matthew McConaughey about running for governor of Texas, and all of a sudden there's a boom for him.
Well, listen, you're always my friend. You're such a great person to cast a vision for this country. I always love listening to you and visiting with you.
Well, I'm telling Matt he's going to lose if he runs against you, so I hope he doesn't do that. But you're ready for anyone, aren't you, Governor?
We are. You may have, but your audience may have not seen both our numbers and our polling numbers, et cetera. So in 10 days, I just raised almost $19 million, to put it a different way, almost raised $1.9 million a day during a tight time period to raise funds. And I have $55 million cash on hand. And then on top of that, the polling numbers are just absolutely rock solid. So bottom line is I'm looking in great shape. But, Hugh, you know me. I take everything seriously, whether it be my job as governor or my job as running and winning a campaign. And so whoever runs, we will take very, very seriously. But we know we have the support among so many people across the state of Texas. It's not just Republicans, it's independents and others who just want to see good governance. And that's exactly why they wanted to so strongly support my campaign after we had such a very successful legislative session.
Well, I want to go to the legislative session and your legislators who are on the run in Cuba. But a last thing about Matthew. Do you know him?
Oh, yeah. So we've known each other, candidly, for a long time now. Interestingly, we both grew up in Longview, Texas. We both went to the University of Texas. We were actually both members of the same fraternity at the University of Texas, and we would hang out together at some University of Texas football games. And his wife was a frequent visitor with my wife and their friends. And so, yes, we do know him. And listen, there's no doubt that he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's very engaging. But there is similarly no doubt that he's never taken a position on politics. And as people who really know what politics is all about, once you start taking positions, your popularity as some Hollywood hero begins to wane, and people pigeonhole you in one category or another. And so we'll just have to wait and see if he starts taking positions. Is he for abortion or is he pro-life like I am? Is he really going to step up and do something about the most pressing issue in the state of Texas, and that is actually secure the border like what I'm doing? Is he going to support the effort like what I have done to defund cities, that defund the police, all kinds of things where you got to take some hard positions where you'll win some friends and you'll also win some enemies along the way.
Now, Governor, right now the state of Texas is kind of a laughingstock because you've got these Democratic legislators who've taken their Miller Lite, gotten on a private jet, and left the state. And I think it's ludicrous. I think it's absolutely going to kill their brand in Texas, but I think it's killing their brand in the United States. What do you make of this absolute foolishness?
Well, if I can go back to the way you open the question, this is not the state that's a laughingstock. It's the Democrats in the state of Texas who are the laughingstock. Because, for one, can you think of anything more un-Texan than running away from a fight? You know, what Texas began about was the Battle of the Alamo, where we had people who were in the Alamo and they refused to run from a fight. They engaged in a fight. And that's what led to the Texas mysticism from the very beginning. And so these are cowards who are running from a fight, who are afraid to go in and do the job that they were elected to do, and that is to debate and vote on issues. Listen, in politics, you know that there's not going to be a party that always gets their way, because regardless of which side it turns, there's always going to be one party in leadership and one party not in leadership. And I got to tell you, their constituents know that just because the people they elected to send to office to be Democrats in the state legislature, just because they're not getting their way, doesn't mean they can walk off the job. Your listeners right now, as well as the voters who put these Democrats in office in the state of Texas, If they were to walk off their job, they wouldn't get paid. They would get fired. And what we've seen history teach time and again is that when people walk away from doing their job, including legislators, they wind up losing their job. And we know for a fact that some of these seats are in very, very close seats. And we think this will come back to haunt the Democrats in a very big way, especially, Hugh, when you add into the fact that there is no escaping having to come back to the Capitol and vote on these issues, because I, as governor, have the ability to call special session after special session after special session until we get this passed. And once these legislators step foot back into the state of Texas, they can be apprehended, brought to the Capitol, and contained in the Capitol until we vote on all of these issues. So unless they want to stay out of the state of Texas all the way up until election year of next year, they're going to have to face the inevitable, and that is come back to Texas and do the job that voters put them in office to do, which is to cast votes on legislation.
Now, Governor, you've raised for me the question I wanted to ask, and some of the geeks out there may think this is too much into the weeds, but I want to know, can you continue to call special sessions so that there is no gap? Because I really wouldn't let the pressure off. This is so absurd and foolish. It's such a terrible example for American children and teenagers that you can jump ship whenever you don't like the result. I just want you to call back to back to back. And I don't want them to get 24 hours off to come see a UT game. I don't want them in town for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want them around for anything. They have to, if they want to be exiled and men and women without a state, fine, but don't give them the opportunity to do that.
So I want your audience to understand that the way the Texas legislature works is that we don't meet every year. We meet for 140 days every other year. This was the year that we met for 140 days, and the session was over on May the 31st. Because we don't meet every year, that means that if I didn't call special sessions, we would not be meeting again until the year 2023. So what the Constitution does, it gives the power to the governor to call special sessions for issues like this. Special sessions last 30 days, and the governor can call endless special sessions, and that's what I'll do. However, Hugh, I'll disagree with you. I actually do hope that they come back and they all go to a Dallas Cowboys game, because they can enjoy 3 hours of entertainment. Then we can have an entire team of Texas Department of Public Safety officers give them a very nice escort to the Texas Capitol, where we can finally get some business done.
Oh, well, that's what I hope happens. Is there a gap, though, where they're ollie in free? Do the rules suspend when the legislature's special session comes to an end? Do they get like a free pass for a weekend?
No. So where I am right now, it is 8:10 in the morning. If the special session ended at 8:10 in the morning, I would start a new special session at 8:11 in the morning.
That's what I wanted to hear, Governor. Gosh, I love Texans. You know, that's why we have an Ohio pennant, Burgee in the Alamos, because they were worth fighting for, even though your football wasn't up to Buckeye standards. Let me ask you now about this.
Hold on, Hugh. You got to know this, and that is, I want you to go look at the roster of the Buckeyes, and you'll see that the best players on the team of the Buckeyes played high school football in the Lone Star State.
Well, look, we have been sending a lot of Ohio coaches down there for a lot of years, so I think the farm team is starting to produce, so I'm glad about that. But it's still AA, not AAA farm. Governor, let's move to what the substance of what you're trying to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. That is what Americans want. They want easy to vote, hard to cheat. And they don't want Joe Biden at the Constitution Center saying this is the greatest crisis since the Civil War. That was the most absurd speech a president has made in my lifetime, Tuesday at the Constitution Center, denigrating 9/11, 2 world wars, and everything else since 1865. Are you afraid of defending the specifics because the media won't cover the specific? It's easy to vote, hard to cheat in Texas. That's the goal.
The specifics are very easy, and the specifics are just as easy to defend as they were the last time the president called me a name. So right now he's saying we're a racist, Jim Crow 2.0. The last time he called me a name was months ago when he called me a Neanderthal for opening up Texas 100% and no masks. And after that decision by me, all that COVID did in Texas was continue to improve. Here again, he's calling us a racist, and without knowing any facts whatsoever, he's engaging in hyperbole. Here are the facts. The facts are that there is zero way that any Texan is being denied the ability to vote. This is insane, because especially In Texas, we have 12 days of early voting. During those 12 days of early voting, we are increasing the number of hours to vote, not decreasing them. So we're making it easier to vote with a lot more time available to vote. And the only thing that we are really cracking down on is mail-in ballot voting, which even Democrats in the state of Texas, from the Texas House floor, including the people who are escaping to Washington, D.C. right now, agree that we need to do more to crack down on mail-in ballot fraud. And we want to make sure that anyone who does qualify for mail-in ballot fraud will be able to cast their mail-in ballot.
Hold it right there, Governor. We're coming back with more from Greg Abbott right after this break. Don't go anywhere. You're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's Friday, but stick around because Governor Abbott's got lots to say you got to hear here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become...
because communism is a bad policy or philosophy for anybody. But then let me just wrap it up this way. What's going on in Cuba is actually the same type of philosophical leanings that people like Ocasio-Cortez and others are trying to push, including Beto O'Rourke in the state of Texas. And these people have no clue what communism or socialism really does to people and how it would crush people, both their freedom as well as their ability to earn a living. And so it's disgusting for anybody to oppose Cuba Libre.
Now, the last question, Governor, is that Black Lives Matter, the organization, on Wednesday night tweeted out support for the Cuban government, a condemnation of the United States, and applauded their sheltering of suspected state highway trooper murderers. I am astonished that people do not understand that BLM is a hardcore Marxist organization. Do the people of Texas get that?
I don't think they really do. You know, when people have seen more and more about some of the policies that Black Lives Matters stand for, they realize that this is something that's more than just aiding and promoting and advancing Black Americans. It's a philosophy that is hostile to what America is all about, and it causes the Black Lives Matter organization to lose credibility, and I think you will continue to see that fray and erode.
Governor Greg Abbott, good to talk to you. Please keep coming back throughout this year and next. Always a pleasure.
All right, take care, Hugh. Just remember, Longhorns are better than Buckeyes every day.
You know, we have a debate ahead, Governor, and I look forward to it. Be well.
Take care.
And you know, I'll teach him a little bit about football the next time he comes back. I love Greg Abbott. He's doing yeoman's work in Texas. Don't forget my Washington Post column on Cuba is over on the landing page of the Post. Go read it, send it around. Come right back for more on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. One of the advantages of Morning Drive radio is I can watch the British Open, which is on live now. Mr. Morikawa is leading by a couple of shots, and talk to Sonny Bunch at the same time. Good morning, Sonny. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to know I have your full attention.
Well, morning. You know, it's a slow game over in Great Britain, and they're always in the high grass, which is up over their, chest. So it's fun to watch.
Sure.
Sonny, I saw Black Widow, and a good 3.5 stars. You were absolutely right. And I read an interesting analysis of Marvel on TV versus Marvel on the big screen, which is the action sequences on the big screen are run between 35 and 40%. But something like Loki, it's down below 15%. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it's mostly a cost issue, right? You can have basically the same amount of action. It's just spread out over more of the show, right? So, Loki is about 4 hours long, and Black Widow is about 2 hours long, a little over 2 hours. So,
that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I thought it was story development that they had to stretch it for a while.
Yeah, think about it this way: Loki and Black Widow probably had pretty close to the same budget, Actually, I mean, Loki probably had a lower budget, frankly, but they probably had pretty similar budgets. And to make that work, you can do the same amount of action. It just is spread out over more show, right? So
That makes sense.
yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. Sure.
Now, I wanted to ask before I ask you what you're watching, if you've seen Summer of Soul. I reference it in my new Washington Post column, at least Jazzman Gil Scott-Heron's The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, which is in the Summer of Soul, as well as Apple TV's 1971. Have you seen either of those yet?
No, I've not.
Okay, I would recommend Summer of Soul. I just had no idea they had this Woodstock in Harlem at the same time, like throughout the summer of 1969, and it's old footage. I love when they find bunches of old footage in someone's garage and they make a movie out of it. What are you watching, Sonny?
Yeah. So up this week we have a couple of new movies. There's an offering on Netflix and something in theaters. Which do you want to go with first?
Netflix, because I'm not going out to a theater this weekend. I'm dog sitting.
Netflix is so first up on Netflix is a new movie called Gunpowder Milkshake. Weird name, Gunpowder Milkshake.
I can remember that.
But it is it's basically it's kind of like, if I was going to give you a shorthand, it would be something like Lady John Wick. It stars Karen Gillan as a hit woman who is employed by a mob like group. Who rescues a young girl from being murdered and has to go on the run. The plot mechanics are very unimportant here. It is a movie that is all about the style of the film. It is I hesitate to call it empty style, but it is pretty much just it is an exercise in style. Lots of slow-mo, lots of camera movements, lots of very starkly designed sets, starkly lit sets, lots of neon, lots of excitement, lots of action. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did enjoy it.
I think you told me, Sonny, that John Wick was special because they did their action scenes in confined spaces. Is there anything distinctive about this?
Well, so this is where it's not quite as good as John Wick, right? The action scenes in this are definitely not as well done. They're not as choreographed. They're not as exciting and relentless. Certainly, I would say this is not as good as John Wick, which was one of my favorite movies of the year that came out, and it's not as good as that, but it's entertaining and fun. Like I said, it stars Karen Gillan, but it also has Lena Headey, Carla Gugino, Michelle Yeoh, really great cast. Paul Giamatti's in this as Angela Bassett. I mean, it's a very good cast. It is under 2 hours. You're in and out. I recommend
Paul Giamatti aside, like Samuel L. Jackson, the man is never not working. I think he's been working as long as I have. I'm just always amazed by these guys who are always working.
Yeah, he is always working, and he's got a TV show. I mean, he's in, he's always got something going on. So good for him. But this is it's I wouldn't say it's a great movie. Wouldn't say it's it's not going to win any Oscars probably. But it is entertaining and fun and kind of poppy and.
All right, that's on my to-do list. Gunpowder Milkshake.
It,
Tell me what I'm not seeing in the theater this weekend.
So in theaters this weekend is a movie called Pig, starring Nicolas Cage. Now, there's the trailer for this inspired kind of a rash of jokes that went something like, so it's like Taken, but with a pig. So in the trailer, what we see is Nicolas Cage hanging out with a truffle hunting pig. He's got one of the truffle hunting pigs. He lives in the woods. He's digging up truffles to sell to fancy restaurants in Portland, and somebody breaks in and steals his pig. And he goes on a revenge quest to get.
That was a mistake.
Right?
That was a mistake to take the pig. Yeah.
But the trailer's a little bit misleading. It is not really an action movie. This is not Taken, but about a pig. It is a much more meditative sort of movie. It really is a movie about the food industry writ large and kind of the ways in which it shapes and can deform some people. But it's also about community. It's about the lives we live and the memories that we form when we, engage in a really good meal made with care and precision. So I don't want to mislead people. I don't want people to go into this thinking, okay, it's Taken, but with a pig. It's better than that. It's really actually it's a very profoundly moving picture about kind of the way we live. I don't know. It was not what I was expecting. In other words,
is it Big Night? I mean, is it Big Night? A restaurant movie, a risotto movie. What is it?
Well, it's not. It is not a. It is a restaurant movie, is the thing, but it's not. It's not a movie like Chef or it's not. It doesn't call to mind like Kitchen Nightmares or anything like that. It's about. Again, it's so. I don't want to spoil too much here, but the basic plot is right. So Nicolas Cage has this pig. Pig gets stolen. He tries to find it. That basic part, that Taken but with a pig part, is right, kind of. But once he gets into Portland and once he starts going to restaurants and searching for the person who stole his pig, you realize that he is a important figure in the world of the Portland restaurant scene. He's living in the woods because of a tragedy. He has kind of removed himself from society. And as he goes through the process of getting his pig back, he comes into contact with all of these people whose lives he has impacted, and he sees kind of the impact he has had on them and helps them understand the ways in which they have messed up their lives. I don't want to say anything more than that. I really want people to go in cold. But
boy, do they have trouble marketing this movie? I mean, this is a hard movie to market, isn't it?
Well, hence the slightly misleading trailer. I mean, it definitely is. Do you remember the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling?
Yes.
So they marketed that movie as basically a Fast and Furious style movie with like car chases and action, but it's not that at all. I mean, it's basically an art house film. It's an art house film about isolation in society and what that does to people. And this is kind of the same way. They're marketing it slightly inaccurately in order to get people in theaters, but I approve of it because the movie is very good.
No, that's what it sounds. It sounds like you really like this movie.
Very good. I strongly recommend it. It's probably my favorite new film of the year so far.
Now that's big news because Sonny doesn't like anything. I mean, seriously, you like some things, but you don't really say things like that very often.
Yeah, I don't love a lot of things. Most things are fine. I mean, most things are like Gunpowder Milkshake. They're in a range of fine. It's confidence and
Black Widow. Black Widow was fine.
Or Black Widow, sure. But this is really, really good, and it's always nice to see Nicolas Cage get a role he can really do something with, because Nicolas Cage is one of these guys who never stops working, but he's not a supporting actor. He's a lead. And so when you're a lead actor in about 7 movies a year, you take a lot of crap. You're in a lot of bad movies. For instance, there's one that's on Hulu now called Willy's Wonderland, in which he plays a guy who fights demonically possessed animatronic figurines. That's the plot of the movie, and it's terrible. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But even in that, he's like kind of interesting. It's just everything around him in that movie is terrible. In this movie, everything around him is great.
Who directed Pig?
The director of Pig is Michael Sarnowski. He wrote and directed this, and it stars Alex Wolff, who people might remember from Hereditary. He was the son in Hereditary, if people saw that. And it also has Adam Arkin, not Alan Arkin, Adam Arkin, as a figure, a shadowy figure in the world of Portland's foodie scene. Again, it's a smaller movie, but it's really good. Strongly recommend it if you can find it in a theater near you.
Sonny Bunch, I will make a note that after the weekend is over, I will go see Pig, which I would never have seen but for talking to you. So you have done your job as the official critic of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Thank you, Sonny
All right.
Bunch. The poet laureate of the Hugh Hewitt Show, Tarzana Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Hugh. I've been doing some more reflecting this week, and I have some solutions. Well, at least ones that I can propose.
Okay.
I think we have a problem, and it's one that we can't fix. If teachers let their students say that 2 + 2 is 6, or if they're so preoccupied on some adjacent path, they don't have time to bother with the niceties of math. The job of education should be focused on elections and not on the equations which determine conic sections. You think that I exaggerate? I've only scratched the surface. Higher education ought to have a higher purpose. Modern universities teach theory over knowledge, and basket weaving classes have been moved to honors college. Teachers and professors, I am pleading with you all. Think about your students while preparing for the fall. The good thing about union rules schools use when they all hire you, there's not a lot that you can do that lets the district fire you. So show the woke among you that society is turning. Drop the propaganda. Give your kids the tools for learning. The task that I've assigned you is both noble and immense. But here in culture warfare, you're the first line of defense. That's Please, Teacher, Please by Tarzana Joe.
Did you work trigonometry into a poem?
Well, conic sections was my actual specialty when I would know it was actually the worst thing I ever did in my life, but it does stick in your mind, you know.
Well, is it geometry or trigonometry? I don't remember anything. It's all
a combination of geometry and trigonometry.
Dude, that's the worst kind then. That ought never to be in a poem again. You might encourage people to learn that stuff.
I am.
All right, Tarzana Joe, will the poem be posted at tarzanajoe.com? Because parents will want to send it to teachers everywhere.
Indubitably.
It's a parent's plea. If you need an alternative title, a parent's plea. TarzanaJoe.com, and every poetry need can be met by Tarzana Joe. No matter how many you send in on any given day, you can turn it around in 24 hours. Not true, but I like to put them on the spot. Tarzana Joe at Reagan.com.
That's my emergency poetry. Emergency poetry is a different facility, but yes, we'll do it.
Tarzana Joe at Reagan.com. Rates are reasonable unless you want it same day service. It's sort of like flowers. Joe, thank you, my friend.
Thank
you. Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway after 4 days in Florida. Glad you were with me. I'm joined by Peter Baker, Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. Peter, what are you working on? I was looking for bylines, and you're active on Twitter, but I haven't seen a byline in a while. Are you working on a book?
Working on a book, doing a book with my wife, Susan Glasser, on the Trump presidency. I realize a lot of books are coming out this week and this month on Trump, but ours is coming out next year. We got a little more time to work on it.
I spoke with an unnamed senior official from the Trump era yesterday. He's a good friend who just doesn't believe any of the Miley stuff. Doesn't believe it. I worked very closely with the general. Said he never raised his voice to the president ever in many, many meetings. I don't have to go any further than that. But here's the deal with the avalanche. I'm glad you're taking your time because you're going to get 15 books in the next 3 months, I think. And they're all going to have anonymous sources, and they're all going to have, I trust your reporting. I think Maggie's got great reporting. I don't know Maggie, but I know she has good sources. But a lot of these people, I'm not going to name names. Some people just make stuff up, Peter, and you know that's a problem.
Yeah, well, we're not going to, and that's.
Oh, I know you don't.
What we're going to do with ours, we have a track record, I think that's pretty good. But we're trying to do something different, I think, than some of these other books. A lot of books are coming out now. They're going to be good. Some of them are going to be great, whatever. But my point is, we want to do the book that captures the full 4 years of the presidency. If you're going to look at one book 10 years from now or 20 years from now, that's going to be the value. A lot of books are capturing parts of it, one aspect of it, COVID or 2020 or what have you, dramatic stuff, interesting stuff, important stuff. We want to step back, take a little bit more time, try to put the whole thing in perspective and write for history.
That's what you did with Bush Cheney, and that's what I appreciated. And I'm hoping for that sort of book. And then in between, you did the Baker book. But I want to know what you're going to do with the problem of a dozen books citing anonymous sources and people who wanted to be kept confidential, some of which we know. You said some are great, some are good. You didn't say the true thing, which is also there are some really awful ones in that stack of books. And so how do you sort through these anonymous quotes? I mean, which ones are you going to use for your book?
Well, we're going to rely on our own reporting as much as possible. The other thing, in addition to looking at what comes out in these other books in the next weeks and months, are the memoirs. There are going to be an extraordinary number of memoirs coming out in the next few months as well. I think almost everybody I can think of is writing a book practically. Jared Kushner, Bill Barr, Jim Jordan. I was talking yesterday with Jamie Raskin, the lead impeachment in the second impeachment. A lot of people are writing their own accounts of key elements of what happened in the last 4 years. That's a rich trove, because what happens is not everybody reads all of them, but we will. And, you have a chance to triangulate lots of different accounts from your own reporting, your own interviews, everybody's memoirs, other journalistic accounts. Hopefully, when you take all that material, it's an extraordinary amount of material, you can try to make sense of it and find truth as best you can, understanding that it's always going to be elusive because different people remember even the same moments differently.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to General Barr's book with the most anticipation, because he's brilliant and his reputation for authenticity, integrity, and accuracy is second to none. I'm also looking forward to Jared's, because he'll have the inside scoop of how he and the United Arab Emirates cooperated to do the breakthrough, which I think is one of the defining moments. And as to the COVID story, good luck with that. I know some of the principles, and you're right. It's Rashomon, right? It's going to be Rashomon. Everybody sees a different thing. But I look forward to yours and Susan's book. Now let me talk to you about Cuba. You're a decade younger than I am, so you won't remember a lot of this stuff. But the Cuban Missile Crisis, I don't remember at all. But my friends who are just a couple of years older than I were scared to death. The Cuban Missile Crisis is we're gonna end up with a replay when China comes to bail Cuba out if the People's Revolt doesn't happen. I mean, they're going to come in, they're going to do Belt and Road, they're going to rebuild Havana, and they're going to put a submarine pin in there. Is anyone in your orbit at the White House thinking about what China is going to do vis-a-vis Cuba, even as we see this brave effort by the Cuban people to finally break free?
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't talked to anybody about it, so I don't have any inside information. But I think I think broadly speaking, China has been a remarkable player in Latin America already. If Cuba is the next area, that's going to be a concern. I saw the other day that they have what was the number? Something like 19 different countries in Latin America are participating in the Belt and Road Initiative, which is rather remarkable. I think 8 countries in Latin America, if I have the number correctly, have China as their number one trading partner. That's a huge shift just in the last few years, and obviously a big challenge for America in its backyard.
Yeah, that oil from Venezuela is going to China. People have to understand, and the hard currency that Venezuela is surviving on, at least their cartel, their mob at the top. But the same thing is going to be true about Cuba, whereas Venezuela was supporting Cuba with China dollars, basically petrodollars from China going to Cuba. That's going to get cut off. And I just wonder, do you think the president denounced communism yesterday, but this is a rare moment. I got a Washington Post column up about this. This hasn't happened in my lifetime, Peter. Castro came to power in '59, so I was, a baby. Mm-hmm. But I'm waiting people to realize it's an amazing moment. It's like East Germany in 1989, but I don't think it's captured the imagination of Americans.
Well, I think maybe because we've been waiting for change in Cuba for so long. I was actually assigned once, and I worked for the Washington Post to be Miami bureau chief back in the 90s. And I remember thinking, okay, this is great. I'm going to go. Maybe during my tenure, that'll be the time when things change in Cuba, and I'll be able to help cover that. Wouldn't that be extraordinary? I think generation after generation of reporters went to Miami or Latin America thinking they would be the ones to cover, the eventual, end of the Castro era. And the beginning of something new, and they were all disappointed. So I think that there's a little bit of wait and see in Americans' part because we don't know where to leave it. It is potentially very enervating if this were to go beyond where it is right now.
Well, the last time Cuba mattered when President Obama went down, took in the baseball game with Castro. That's a bad moment, but it's a moment. Then there's Elian Gonzalez, which is 1993. Then you go back 20 years to the boat lift. And it the rhetoric goes on, the debate goes on. Cuban Americans are never not engaged. But nothing has happened in Cuba in 60 years. It's really, I don't know who your counterpart is.
Yeah.
But do you think have we worn out America's interest, in other words? What you're saying is we've been waiting so long.
Right. A frozen conflict, right? That's the phrase we used to use when we covered Russia and the old Soviet Union era. There's a lot of little frozen conflicts in that part of the world that people eventually just kind of, drop off the radar, drop off the geopolitical map, even though they're still there, still important, and ultimately could be, unfrozen someday. This has been one of the longest one, maybe in modern times, 60-some years. Extraordinary. as you say. And so I think we've been waiting for the day that Cuba would see the kind of change that Eastern Europe saw, that we thought the Arab world was beginning to see 10 years ago. And I don't know if this is it or not, but I mean, that's what people would want to watch for.
Well, what my post column is, when the Arab Spring came along, the networks rightly went crazy over it, and they dispatched all sorts of journalists to it, and they're not doing that with Cuba. And I think it's because it's just so old, and the imagination hasn't been sparked. But guys like you who know Miami, if President Biden went to Miami to give a speech in defense of the Cuban people, how many people would turn out, Peter? You know Miami. What would happen if he went to Miami to give a speech on freedom for Cuba?
I think there are a lot of people, as you say, in Miami still focused on this, even if the rest of America is kind of focused on other things. And I think that it would be, far from me to tell any president what to do. But I think you're right that the president would find a receptive audience there on that.
Now, Angela Merkel at the White House last night, this is kind of her swan song, right? It's more of an old lang syne, people breaking out into song and saying goodbye. Who's next, Peter Baker? In Germany.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think Germany has been going through this succession, crisis in a way, not crisis, but uncertainty now for a while. I haven't followed the latest, so I don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, what's interesting is that they had Adenauer, there was a crisis. They had Willy Brandt, there was a crisis. They had Helmut Kohl, there was a crisis. Now they've got Merkel. The Germans just pick one and they go with them for like 15 years, and then they got to figure it out, and nobody knows, right?
Right, exactly. And she has been such a powerful force on their political horizon now for so long, something like 16 years. It's hard to even think of Germany, modern Germany, without her. And it's hard to think of Europe without her. What's going to be interesting is her successor, not just her successor in Germany, which is important, but her successor in Europe. And I see Emmanuel Macron in France trying to position himself for that. I don't know if that'll happen, but it's important.
She's a lioness in winter. I don't know if it's going to be an empty stage and one without Britain in it. Peter Baker, always a pleasure. Peter Baker, NYT, coming right back, America. Stay tuned.